Hi, everybody. This is Cindy Kennedy, and you're listening to another episode of Living with Lyme. You're in for a treat today because we're going to learn a lot about our environment and how it impacts our bodies and the level of toxins that we carry. I have a really great friend. Her name is Dr. Shanhong Lu, and she's been a great mentor to me to teach me more about the burden, the load that we carry and why we get so sick. She has a tremendous amount of experience in family health. She has had an internal medicine practice. She practices integrative health. She's worked in anti-aging and in genetics, and certainly understands the benefit of detoxifying your body because she's learned it primarily because of her own health. And I can't wait to introduce her and get talking all about toxins. Hi, Dr. Lu. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Cindy, for your commitment to, root cause medicine.
Thank you. Thank you. It certainly is different, and it's an upstream approach, and it's something that we're not only needing to educate the population, we're really needing to educate mainstream medicine at the benefit because, the Band-Aid approach of here's a medication for this, and then here's a medication to combat the side effects of that, it's just not working. And the level of chronicity in terms of health has been skyrocketing, right?
I lost you for a second.
We did lose each other. That's okay. That's okay. Where are you? Looking for your face. I can't find you.
I changed it to the pictures to save the speed.
Okay, sounds good to me. So everybody that's been listening, we just fell offline for a second, but we're back on board. I want to talk about your life experience, Dr. Lu, and how you came to learn and really become passionate about the level of toxins in the environment and what's causing some illness in people's body.
Yes. So Cindy, I have lived in China for 25 years, and ever since I was a kid, I had a lot of issue with thyroid and my immune challenge, but it was not bad enough to have a diagnosis, right? So you're always having a cold in the winter, you're always constipated, the skin is always dry, which I just blamed on the, just part of nature. So when I first started my practice after studying basic science in genetics, physiology, and did my residency, I moved to Mount Shasta to find my own heart. Mount Shasta, California has the best water pretty much on the planet. We only have one contaminant. And we're supposed to be in the middle of the mountain at high, like 3,000 feet. So I consider myself eating organic, exercise every day, and I was pretty good. But at the age 42, I developed multiple food sensitivity, autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. My endocrine system just crashed. I have no adrenal gland. My thyroid is all over the place. And then I was taking birth control pill later on. I didn't realize that was actually a pharmaceutical menopause. And so at age 42, I had fracture of my hand, falling off a bike. All these things start to indicate early signs of aging, right? Except I was only 42. So I was initially like all the medical doctors, I will be doing symptom management. I was taking inhalers, allergy pills, sleeping pills, digestive pills, different kinds, nature or not natural, right? So you have both remedies. So one day it dawned to me, I was packing up for a trip. I was putting all these different remedies in my bag, and I suddenly realized I was taking about 8 prescriptions together with a handful of herbs. So I realized something is not right. You know, I was 42 years old. I was supposed to be at the best time in my life. So that's where I started to look into the root cause. Initially, Cindy, I got really involved with American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, the A4M. I was intrigued about the hormones because I have basically 3 hormone system decline, and I'm learning about hormones, right? And then meanwhile, I keep asking me, wait a minute, I was only 42 though, you know, am I supposed to going through all these things, or is something else? And my biggest lesson happened is a patient of mine. She was 56 years old, 16 pounds overweight, 16, 20 pounds overweight. Her hair started to fall out. She has 2 different autoimmune disease, plus multiple chemical sensitivity, okay? And she was like me. She grew up in Mount Shasta, lived here, healthy life, organic food. And then she was showing me how bad her fingers are. And I, of course, I tried to treat her. I tried to give her adrenal support. You know, she's menopause, so I can't really do very much yet. She's too toxic and sensitive. And so I gave her a whole bunch of nutritional detoxification powders and drinks and omega-3 fish oil, which I really thought was one of the best protocol. But unfortunately, she could not take any. She said, Dr. Lu, whatever these things, it's like $500, and I could not take any of those. Even though I am determined, I need to find, so I encourage her together to find somebody else. I said, you know, when you feel better, please come back and tell me how you did it. So then she was gone for 2 months, and she came back, and she looked like a different person. First of all, her eyes are much more open, so it looks like she had a facelift. She lost 16 pounds, so she looked much healthier. Her hair grew back. Her hands are 80% better. This is 8 weeks. So I said, what are you doing, Judy? She said, well, I'm taking a spray and a pill. I said, what are those? You're not sensitive to those? She said, no. I said, who gave it to you? She said, the naturopath. So I called the naturopath on the spot, and he is a Lyme specialist, actually.
Really?
And he said,
Wow.
Dr. Lu, yep, Dr. Corey, you should check him out. He's only treating Lyme now. And he's a naturopath. He said, Dr. Lu, the spray helped the body deal with stress. And the neuroendocrine system do not function well in people with autoimmune, okay? So right. It says basically reset the stress response. It's really good for traumatic brain injury, but it's also really good for emotional trauma, which later on I discovered stroke, meningitis, encephalitis, some minor brain injury physically or emotionally, suddenly lost your parents, you know, divorce, big emotional event actually shuts down your neuroendocrine system in many people. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I said, okay, that sounds really amazing. He also said in people with autoimmune, particularly, they have the hypothalamic pituitary function issue. So right. I said, okay, right. what is the pill then? He said the pill detoxify chemicals. Okay, so this was like the first time in my life I didn't realize I have chemicals. I was like, chemical? I have dental fillings, have the mercury. He said, no, it's chemicals. I said, I don't have any chemical because I live in Mount Shasta. He said, well, where did you live before Mount Shasta? I said, I lived in San Francisco, Milwaukee. I was in China. He said, did you eat organic food then? I said, no, we don't have, I never heard of organic food until I moved to Mount Shasta. He said, well, how about other chemicals? I said, well, we did have DDT when we were growing up. We love DDT. DDT is my friend. And he said, well, those chemicals accumulate over time, okay? And that affects your immune system the most. And I didn't really know.
I think
Yeah.
people don't understand that it's not
Right.
from a week or two ago. You know, you
Correct.
right. So you got a tick bite
Right.
last month and now you're sick and you're like, oh, well, that's, you know, that all of
Right.
a sudden the body can't defend itself, but it isn't a recent, it's a cumulative, right? It's cumulative.
Yes. 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 So that's where I start to understand, you know, by the time people are 40, 50, because most of my patients with autoimmune are always in the 40 and 50. There are two things happen in women in the 40 and 50, right? The first one is our hormones start to become estrogen dominant first.
Right.
Estrogen dominant alone will help, will cause more risk factor for autoimmune disease, for sure, because the
Right.
immune system is regulated by estrogen progesterone balance.
Right.
But at the same time, I didn't realize by the time we're 40, 50, we also have accumulated toxic burden in our organs. The accumulation is what makes this group of people become more prone to have autoimmune disease. Do you
Right.
see?
Right. And
So
you
if
know,
you look back,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I know. I want to use what you said about estrogen dominance and explain to women that in that
Mm-hmm.
perimenopausal and then certainly as we're entering into menopause, the ovary is producing less quality eggs than that you did when you were 20 and 30, and so those eggs do not produce enough progesterone to balance, so that's why you end up having a higher level of estrogen, and the higher level of estrogen can get you into big trouble. Okay.
Correct.
You're on now. Go ahead.
So that is one of the reason, right? Another reason, Cindy, is I found now young people, okay, young people, a woman today, you probably can reflect when you compare to your life, to your grandmother, your mother's life. A modern woman today are superwoman. We are multitasking. We are stretched far, far and burning candles on all different sides. Really, so what happened is our neuroendocrine system also prevent ovulation. So ovulation is a synergy of the pituitary gland in communication with ovary, right? So if the
Exactly.
pituitary gland is stress driven, we don't ovulate. So when you don't ovulate, just like taking a birth control pill, we're not ovulating, we still have a period. See, that's the part I didn't understand. I thought if I have a period, I must be ovulating. But not really. If you are not ovulating, clearly you will not be producing progesterone. So that was one thing I want to share with people, because I'm now seeing younger people in their 30s, you know, they're just becoming graduate from college. They have all the student loan. They're going to take care of their family, get married, have children, have a charity, have a profession. And those women are very low in their, ovarian activity, the ovaries. So at the same time, like I said, if you start accumulating toxins before birth, there's a movie called 10 Americans, and they measured the umbilical blood of 10 healthy American women, and umbilical blood reflected 288 chemicals in the fetus. And
That's
they are
that's
not even born
un,
yet.
that's unbelievable. Think
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
unbelievable.
Think about
Yes,
how many over 200.
88 average. Yes.
That's
So
crazy.
so now, Cindy, you have children too. If you look at them, right, and now they are having sexual issues, infertility,
Yes.
oh
Yes.
my,
Oh my
now,
God. It's rampant in this 30-ish age group, you know?
yes, yes. And then if you look at them, many of them don't have any sex drive. Of course, that's more complicated because they said the millennials are not having sex because they're all on the phone. So that's another issue. but chemically, they're also hormonally disturbed too.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you look at boys,
Yeah. What about boys? What about their testosterone?
So boys is another thing. Is we have more impact sports today. Some of the young kids I saw in their 20s have very low level of human growth hormone and testosterone because they had multiple head injuries from sports. See?
Really? Wow.
Yes. So if you measure their IGF-1 and testosterone level, one kid, his IGF-1 was like 96, should be 800. His testosterone was 76.
Oh, that's
and he
real
was
low.
27 years old, right? Now, of course, he has no interest of dating. He has no energy. He is addicted to multiple substances because he does not feel good. Any young man at that age with such a low anabolic hormones are not going to feel great. So that's the traumatic injury, the stress on the pituitary gland, the neuroendocrine system. But again, we were going back to the accumulating of toxins in the liver and causing more problem by the time we're midlife, right? So the true midlife crisis today is no longer just a hormonal issue. It's also a accumulated environmental toxin issue. So
I just the thought of this, I'm trying to choose my words wisely here. It can frighten people.
Right.
However, I don't want people to feel that there's nothing they can do about it.
Correct.
Yes, people can become active. Knowledge is power. Freezing and doing nothing is not going to correct the issue. And, I know that process of reducing your toxins should start in your home with your personal products and your cleaning products, and then the food you eat and the water you drink and all of those things.
Yep.
But we need to talk about what can we do to get rid of this heavy burden that we have. Let's talk about the mechanisms. How do we detoxify? Just not even adding anything to assist the body. How does the body work in general to detoxify?
That's very good. So Cindy, I think one of the narrative about environmental medicine have been, since the Silent Spring. Rachel Carson's book called Silent Spring, and she started the Silent Spring Institute, the first woman who stand up for environment. And that has been going on for probably 56 years. We have been talking about this for too long. We must make it a practice. So that's one of the simple things is I ask people, if I can detect what is your body burden and teach your body to detoxify for 3 months, okay? And your symptom and issues will be 80% better. Would you be interested in feeling better today? 90 days, okay? So people say, well, why 90 days? Well, first of all, I discovered our liver and many organs, skin is actually faster rejuvenation. The gut should not take more than 1 month. If you have a digestive issue and you actually got rid of the root cause, your gut should be completely clean and healthy in 1 month. Why? Because the epithelial cells only live 48 to 72 hours. So if you're doing the right gut restoration program, right, you should be better in 1 month, okay? Some organ take longer. The liver is 2 months. The brain is at least 6 months. The brain is slower, but the endocrine system is fast too. Endocrine system can be like 8 weeks. People can feel completely different. Hair and skin are the fastest organ to rejuvenate, and the gut. So I always tell people, take a picture before you do the 90-day trial. Take another picture in 3 months. You will see the difference yourself. So I started documenting, my patient come in, I take a picture, I get a blood test panel, I look at their endocrine system, their liver, their CBC, their CRP, their lipid. I get the whole system picture. And back then, I didn't have the environmental toxin test. This is in 2006. So I only have the blood test. I have the pictures. I measure their belly. And then I do a 90-day. And then I take another picture. I get another set of blood. And that's really when I started learning about true restorative medicine must involve detoxification first, okay? The same principle I studied from stem cell expert, Dr. Steenbrock. And he said, Dr. Lu, as primary care physician, what I want you to do is to get people detoxified before you refer them to a stem cell. Right now it's peptide, it's an exosome, all the stuff. You need to detoxify the body, create optimal environment. So when I give people the $5,000 shot, it will last longer. Otherwise, I'll be giving them every single week. How many people have $20,000? Stem cell also need a healthy environment. Now, if the women are over 50, you need to get their hormone together, because without good hormone, the stem cell doesn't live very well either. You see? So detoxification need to be the first step, not the last step.
Yeah. And that's one of the problems with treatment of Lyme disease. You overburden the system that's already burdened, and you really need to open up the system and drain the system and clean it out in order for the body to get rid of the additional toxins that that are being released when you're treating Lyme disease. Whether it be mold, whether it be Lyme, any other type of burden on the body that's infectious, you've got to help the body. So, it's kind of like, you're trying to stick your finger in the hole in the dam to tidy it, but you can't. You're never going to be able to hold that back. And when the body just can't tolerate that. And people are walking around exhausted, in pain, and this whole thing about multiple food and chemical sensitivities. I gotta ask, how does toxic burdens lead to that? Give me the blow by blow of how that happens.
Yes, that's really good. So Cindy, it's a podcast, so I can't show you the slides.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Right, but if you close your eyes and just visualize yourself walking through New York City, right? So how the toxin enter our body? It enters by, the first thing is breathing. Air pollution was considered to be the number one factor making Wuhan, Italy, and New York the epicenter of the COVID-19, okay? Because air pollution is definitely the most dangerous, not only for your lung, your respiratory system, but also your cardiovascular system. It increases hypercoagulopathy. It can directly cause brain disorder. So it's really important to just don't ignore the air, because we breathe how many times per minute, right? So that's one. The second thing, close your eyes, you go to a restaurant, you drink some water. So what is in the food and water is ingestion. We are ingesting chemically loaded food and water, and then we can definitely talk about that. Number three is the skin. Now, people overemphasize on the skin because women tend to put 168 chemicals per day onto the skin. But I'm seeing problem with just the skin exposure. For example, Roundup. You guys, probably don't know as much as Roundup as us, because California spray the most pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides in the United States. California is number one because agriculture. Now people think, well, I'm not a farm worker, but UC Davis pediatric department actually studied the school within 1 mile to a farming community have much higher incidence of allergies than asthma, because this is called the downwind drift phenomena. So these drifts, in the summertime can get on your skin, you can be breathing in, are invisible. This is the problem with most of the chemicals. They are odorless. They don't have any taste. They don't have a big orange color, so you can avoid, right? So we are definitely inhaling and exposing our skin more and more to these chemicals. But the main channel is really the air and water and food. So that's how the toxin get into our body, okay? Once it get into the body, we actually have intestinal detox system. It's called the cellular detox. The body will initially increase oxidative stress to alarm the intracellular structure to activate antioxidant enzymes. Also, methylation, sulfation, and glucuronidation all happens in the cellular level. So the first layer is epithelial cells lining the lungs and lining the gut. So those cells have to work harder, right? But right now, due to the glyphosate, which is the Roundup main ingredient, the weed killer, it caused the tight junction to break down. So this actually makes the environmental toxin issues much worse, because not only our cells have to work harder, we also have leaky gut and leaky brain. So these toxins get into our system, into our central nervous system much, much faster. So that's just a problem where our new body have to deal with it, right? So our body will deal with it, process it, and then move into the blood, and the blood will get to the liver. Now, liver is the biggest biotransformation factory that will deal with not only exogenous toxins, but also endogenous. People on the ketogenic diet have more acidic to process. People going through weight loss, the fat will release toxins, now on top of all the daily toxins, right? So the liver have to do it. Now the liver going through the detox by 2 steps. So that's called phase 1 and phase 2. And then when the body coming in, the phase 1 enzyme will make it more water soluble, but not complete. So goes through a different biochemical processing. So create a middle product called the intermediate product. Some of the intermediate product actually become more toxic. This is the problem with genetic, because the phase 1 is different, right? So some of the people get Lyme disease, or they get tick bite, and they don't have any problem. See, have you seen those people?
Yeah, well, I know it's an amazing fact. Yes, and then there are other people that they've had a tick bite in the past and they were fine, and then that trauma happened that we were just talking about, or maybe your exposure, your toxin level just got to a point where your body can't handle it, and now you're sick.
Right, exactly. Another thing is, Cindy, I just did a detox seminar for 30 minutes. I didn't know you get a chance to see it. And when people say what happened, how the detox system was involving the immune system, well, most environmental toxins, that's when it's not adequately detoxified, it will inhibit your Th1, which is the natural killer cells, the cytotoxic cells. So cellular immunity are inhibited when there's excessive amount of toxins. And that's why viral infection, candida, parasites, and also Lyme disease, those are intracellular organisms, and oftentimes they depend on the natural killer cells, the cytokine, cytotoxic cells to do the job. You see? Yeah. And this is the Th1 deficiency syndrome, which also causes autoimmune. So this is direct relationship to environmental immunotoxicity happening through this whole process. You see? So people, they're sick, end up getting sick all the time. You see?
Right,
So
right.
that's really the biggest challenge. And by the time they come to see you, Cindy, they probably would tell you, because I've seen this many times. They said, okay, Dr. Lu, I have seen a naturopath, I have seen an integrative doctor, a hormone doctor, I have seen a functional medicine, I did a genetic nutrition. I spent $30,000 in the past 2 years. And I will feel a little better at the most, but mostly progressively getting worse. So by the time they see you, you do an environmental toxin screen, and clearly, not only they are being bombarded still by toxins, but also their body just overloaded. And this is where I actually put my practice aside, Cindy. That's how I met you, is
Right.
I need to get out there and tell physicians, instead of waiting, after treating all these things, getting the toxin out first. If the house is full of garbage, the house can buy new furniture, new paint. But if the house is full of garbage, the house, which is our body, is not going to look great. Don't you agree?
Oh,
So
yeah. I got a
I think
visual. I have a visual on that one.
so you can see, because I have people say, oh, I'm going to remodel my house. I'm going to choose this paint, the new window, everything. But in the middle of the house is loaded with garbage and it started to smell really bad. So anyway, you get the picture, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of encourage people, since environmental toxins are so ever present, accumulating, let's just remove them first to see if the house or our body can self-regulate.
Right, right, right.
That's really, it's hard because I don't know, I get approached by all this biohacking company. Have you ever heard this new term called the brain hack, biohack? It's
No,
probably not
no.
very.
What is that?
So basically, in the California always are ahead of you guys.
Yeah, I know. You guys are always, you're not only 3 hours behind us, but you're totally ahead of us, at least by years when it comes to things. Yeah. So give it to me straight. What is this biohacking?
So biohacking is really about how to treat the symptom of your body with electro frequencies,
Oh, yes.
energetic frequencies, right?
Yes.
So it's very common now because lots of companies from Germany are creating these things. And I do think they have a purpose. They do address the symptoms. So this particular popular one, everybody was telling me today, 5 people called me. You will not believe it. Dr.
Really?
Lu, this is really good for my pain. You just turn on this and start working. And I said, well, in this part of my life, I like to ask if your body can self-regulate, if your body can use the pain as a red flag to see what's going on underneath there, right? It's not that I don't believe in modalities. I do think there are lots of, I myself purchased many, many machines in my life, but I really want to ask what the body is trying to tell me, right? So right now, the national level of anxiety is really high. So of course, people can take a Xanax, they can take some GABA, can address it. But meanwhile, if we have been ingesting a neurotoxins, for example, glyphosate is actually one of the biggest neurotoxin. They sprayed the black glyphosate in a group of rats, and they compared to the water, right? It's like a controlled double-blind placebo because the rat doesn't know which one they get sprayed. And then they ran the rats into some testing. They found they have severe decrease in short-term memory, increase in anxiety behavior, and aggression, okay? you probably can, Cindy, you can probably look at our nation today. My mother is in China. She's like, what's going on in America? You know, anxiety, aggression, short-term memory loss.
And
Anyway,
obesity,
and obesity.
obesity, and your
Yeah,
fat stores that, all these
right,
toxins.
right. So yeah, so instead of just treating the symptom, because they found out glutamate level is increased in this group of rats exposed to glyphosate. So glyphosate is really the cause. So it's easy to just remove the glyphosate. Otherwise, you have to treat for short-term memory, which we really don't have any treatment. You can take anti-anxiety pill, and what pill you're going to take for aggression? Smoking pot, maybe, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying smoking pot, taking anti-anxiety pill doesn't work. I'm just saying we need to find out what's causing it.
Right,
You
right. You got to
see?
look underneath. You got to pick up those rocks and you got to look underneath.
Yes.
So let's talk about what are the toxins. We do know about glyphosate,
Mm-hmm.
herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. These are things that are in the environment. People are using really next door, on their
Mm-hmm.
weeds in the sidewalk,
Yes.
it's hard to get away from it, and that all comes down to this whole issue with Monsanto and GMOs
Right.
and all of that. So we got that
Right.
picture. We got that picture.
Right.
What other toxins are burdening the body?
Yeah. So this is very good. There are two ways to classify toxin. One way is by their biochemical structure. So there are chemical toxins. In the chemical toxins, the most common is called endocrine disrupting chemicals, because they're very, very capable of disrupt your whole endocrine system, your thyroid, your sex hormone, your testosterone, your pituitary gland. Okay. The second one we call metabolic toxins, by what the toxin do, right? So metabolic toxins are BPA. They make people fat, obesogen, those things, or insulin receptor blockers, right? We have skinny bicyclists have type 2 diabetes because their insulin receptor are blocked. And then we have immunotoxins like the PAFA. You guys probably heard the Dark Water, the movie. PAFA is a group of chemical that really is really hard on the immune system. And then we have neurotoxins. So though you can divide the toxin by what they do to the body. So that's one way to divide the toxin. The other way is simply kind of look at the structure. So chemical are man-made. So that means, our body doesn't know how to recognize them. They're just completely man-made biochemical molecules from the petroleum product, okay? Petrochemical industry, fossil fuel is the hormones of the dinosaurs. So people didn't know that was just, you just have to know that biochemically they are very similar to steroid hormones. So those chemicals are usually also made for nitrogen, pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. They call organophosphates. And those are whole group. We have, in the United States, we have 5 million chemicals registered with the American Chemical Association. 5 million.
Whoa.
Over 100,000 have been registered for human use, okay? So basically, your clothing, your cosmetic, it directly on your body, 100,000 kinds. And only like 10% has ever been tested. So 90% never had tested, just flowing in our life. So that's the chemical. The second one is a big can of worm, is electromagnetic frequencies, which is actually the pollution that is really growing rapidly with cell phone use, the tower and stuff. Those are not really a molecule, but it's really the frequency. Number 3 will be heavy metal. It's a really amazing how people become more and more aware about heavy metal now. But heavy metal is really an old pollutant. Not that many. You know, if you read the environmental toxin book, the well-documented heavy metal are just 5. It's not that many. So heavy metal should not really be the focus of today. I mean, you should look at it, but you know, the connection with Parkinson's is now clear. You can't create an animal model of Parkinson by giving enough heavy metal, okay? So it's not related. But you do have animal model of Parkinson's with paraquat, with glyphosate. You know, if you spray them enough, they will develop Parkinson's. You see? So
Right.
that's so there's a you know, heavy metal is not that we thought heavy metal was it, but it was not. Heavy metal does cause some problem with acute poisoning. Number 4 is we call the biotoxin. Biotoxin is really a consequence of a ineffective native immune system. Biotoxins are also relatively rare, just because you can count the number. They are also old. The biotoxins such as mold, I don't know if you guys know this, you know, before we have refrigeration, before we have chemical fungicides, you know, your grandmother probably would tell you they see mold all the time. You know, mold on a piece of bread, mold on the onion, mold on the oranges. Mold is a pretty common thing. But mold never got the chance to be so aggressive until today. Why?
Why? Yes, why?
Because number 1, mold sensitivity is really determined by the innate immune system fail to recognize the mold toxin. Okay, so think about it. We were talking about the chemicals inhibit the innate immune system. So people have a weak innate immune system will be very sensitive to mold. You see the consequence?
Yeah.
We have more chemicals, more immune compromised state, more sensitivity to the same amount of mold. Let's say the mold is the same, okay? Now, that's number 1 I see is an immune system deficiency phenomena. The second is increased magnetic frequencies. Electromagnetic frequency actually are known to increase mold toxin production. They actually did experiment collecting under the cell phone influence, the mold will produce, let's say, 100 units of toxins. But if you're without the cell phone, you probably produce like 6.
Now, are you talking about in the body or in the environment? The increase in the environment.
Let's say you have a moldy spot in your shower.
Yeah.
Okay. Without EMF influence, the mold will produce a little bit of toxin. You don't even notice. Okay.
Right.
But if your house is really full of dirty electric, the mold toxin will be much higher by 600 times.
Wow.
Do you see?
And I don't want to see.
The toxin,
I just don't want to see.
So that's the problem. We have to understand our environment is very interconnected. We can't just say we are superhuman being. We don't really care, you know, because those people with genetic issues like mold sensitivity affect about 20% Americans, and where people can't detox. So those are the people are going to be you and I, our patients. Do you see?
Yeah.
And then some people are really believe in evolution. They say, well, survival of the fittest, right? They say, well, you know, too bad. Some people just don't really care. So, but this is the deal. Because I've seen the top 10%, the super rich and wealthy, right? They're not that happy. Let me tell you why. I believe human beings are here to be happy together. We're pack animals. So if everyone is happier, the society will be healthier and happier. You see, this
Right.
is really my big vision. I want to create more and more people that are happy and healthier. You see?
Right. Right.
So,
How are we going to get this message to
yeah.
mainstream medicine, and how are we going to get them to buy into it? Because right, sometimes I don't know if it's just that they are so overwhelmed and they can't have
Yes.
one more thing on their plate. But
Yes.
so is there a way that you found that you've been able to help impact
Yes.
people? Tell me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So Dr. Michelle Perro, you should probably interview her one day. I'll introduce you to. She's a
Okay.
pediatrician of 40 years. She had never seen so many kids with panda, autoimmune. So she and I recently started a project called Testing Physicians. Okay. We're just testing MDs. I mean, if you're testing NDs, you're probably a preach choir.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have a physician study. We want them to collect their hair. Okay, let me tell you why hair. Because sometimes urine only reflect what they eat yesterday or the past 1 week or a couple months. The hair give you a long-term burden.
Right.
So we're
Good point.
modifying.
Good point. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah. So we can do both. So we can have a recent exposure and long-term exposure. So we want to ask maybe 100 to 500 MDs from all over the country to participate in the project. And the website is gmoscience.org. And if you go to that link, you will see testing. They give you a little short questionnaire, like what kind of food do you eat, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's really simple, not just one page. And then we send in the hair. By the end of, let's say, 2 months, we have 500 people sample in there. Then we're going to publish it. Just a observational data.
Right.
Now, what I learned, Cindy, is I recently tested 5 MDs in our local area. They all are loaded with glyphosate. You'll be so shocked in Mount Shasta. And then when you talk to them, it's interesting because they look great. I mean, they don't look bad. It's hard to tell. They're in Mount Shasta. They're not overweight. They're not obese. They're exercisers. But some of them already have cancer. Some of them already have their pancreas tumor removed, thyroid tumor removed. We had a woman developed a certain type of movement disorder after the diagnosis of breast cancer. Do you see? And then when they saw the toxins, and which is mainly glyphosate, you'll be shocked. They will say, oh my God, I actually use that every year for 4 or 5 days in the springtime to kill all the weeds. Most of them actually use it, Cindy.
Wow.
Right? So what happened, these 5 MDs, one of them become the best advocate for agriculture organic growth. Most of them don't even buy organic food. So I think right now, we think we found a way to convince the physicians is to test them first.
That's
And then
that's
have an
brilliant.
individual follow-up.
That's brilliant.
Isn't that brilliant?
That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Whose idea was that?
Well, I had ideas 3 or 4 years ago called Making Toxin Visible. And then we found the biggest momentum happened when the physicians are testing themselves. Because, think about myself, Cindy. I would never have done anything like holistic if myself didn't get sick. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If I live totally fine, I didn't have any problem. I didn't have a chance to stop. I probably will just practice, symptom management medicine.
Right.
I think the physician have to start from themselves. Another thing I love to do with you, because you have a beautiful spa that's coming, is we do a physician retreat.
Ooh.
they have to experience it.
Wow.
I mean, how many physicians have time to take care of themselves?
I know. And they're so caught and they're so busy and they're just, I feel terrible. I mean, I've told people before, but I had a physician tell one of a patient that I was taking care of, you know, that I don't know, it was dirty talk about me. It was like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. What is this organic acids test? And the bottom line was he was upset because if her insurance paid out a portion of that test, it would actually
Right,
come
right.
out of his pocket. So I wasn't going to tolerate that. I
Oh.
sent him a letter and said I'd come and talk with him. Well, he was there with his two partners, and it was a huge
Mm-hmm.
ambush. I may have even told you that. I couldn't even, there
No.
was nothing I could do because they were headstrong and determined. We talked about Lyme, and they said it's a bacteria, and an antibiotic kills a bacteria. You know, they didn't want to, they're not
Wow.
open. They don't want to listen. And, you know, sometimes
Right.
it's hurtful. Uh, you know, we're not
Yeah.
practicing voodoo here. We're getting down to the basics. Let's talk about the
Right.
basics. I go nuts now when I see someone drinking out of a water bottle. You know, if it's
Mm-hmm.
plastic,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about that, because
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a blog which is
Right.
available on pursuewellness.us, because I was
Mm-hmm.
blind to the fact that these numbers in the triangles did not represent what bin the recycle goes into. It has to do with what is that
Mm-hmm.
made of. And all of
Mm-hmm.
water bottles, you turn them over, there are one. It's the one of the most toxic.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know what?
Yeah.
It's, and then you know, it's interesting because I learned more about plastics and the evolution of it, and it came
Yeah.
status post World War II, because, and really it came about because in the little DOP bags that the soldiers had, there were combs, and the combs were made out of rubber, and they were
Mm-hmm.
running kind of low on rubber trees, and so that's where the plastic started, and
Oh.
then they made plastic combs for them, and then they started, you know,
Wow.
accumulating the fact that, hey, we're losing product because it's in glass and it falls off the shelf and breaks. So look at this is cool, it's plastic, it
Right.
can bounce, it doesn't break, and it gets out of control.
Wow.
It gets out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm excited because I do know that you have you know, you're passionate about the Orenda product line, and I, you know, you've spoken to me multiple times. I've spoken to some of the other people that you've suggested that I speak to, and you know, it's one of those things where it's got such positive results. And so, yep, I did it. I ended up ordering my bottle of Immune, and
Yes.
yes, and Kathy, uh, Kathy, what's
Yes.
Kathy's last name?
Oh,
Oaks. Okay. So
Kelsey O's.
yes, she's like, you got to do it. Here's the protocol. This is how you detox. And, you know, right now, you know, you know, I stop and think of where I was a few years back with fighting Lyme, being on chronic antibiotics, and then
Mm.
finding out I had mold, and just that
Yes.
chronic illness, and I just completely forgot about what it felt like to feel well. And, you know, finally getting
Yeah.
someone to say, yeah, these mycotoxins have to come
Yeah.
out. And, you
Yes.
know, I mean, yeah, is it every day perfect? No, but,
No.
but, right. But if you can tell somebody, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I get where you are, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
but what would it take? What would it take for you
Mm-hmm.
to feel fantastic? in 3 to 6 months? What would you do to achieve that?
Let's talk about the sickest people,
Okay,
okay?
sick people.
Like real sick. Those people start with cellular detox and make sure they sleep. See, it's a program. Make sure their gut is healthy and take a good multi. So that's called the fourth system. The
Right.
neuroendocrine system, the immune detox, the multi, and the digestive, which is about 245 retail a month for 4 different things. And then 147 at wholesale for 4 products. So
Right.
that's actually pretty simple. We would just say, well, let's just do a 90-day reset and see how much you get better, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, they have to stop eating the glyphosate.
Right.
Cindy, I can give you a list of food that's mostly sprayed. You can give it to your patient. I said, glyphosate is this. If you eat it, it's going to destroy your microbiome. It's going to make you leaky gut. So all these things will not help. So you really should not eating it at the same time to detox it, right? So,
Right.
so that was number one. And then, the water filter, the air filter, those take time. They don't have to do that right away to feel better. And it's just the opposite. I have lots of people will feel better first, then they become more motivated.
Right.
See?
Right.
Otherwise, they're feeling horrible. You can't say, you have to go clean your house, get the mold instruction, everything. I mean, they just feel like crap. They don't even.
They feel like crap. Well,
They
because the
don't
house
even.
is filled with crap. It's filled with crap. And you know what the difference is?
Yeah.
Unless it's facing them and they can see it, smell it, or feel it,
Yeah.
they don't know it's there. And
Right.
people bury their head in the sand. And I'm
Yes.
hoping that anyone who's listening to this podcast, speak to your family, your friends, and let them know, yeah, they got to get their head out of the sand. They've got to start
Yeah.
thinking and looking, because you know what? That's what we want. We don't want to live to be 100 and have the last 20
Right.
years where we're bed bound and we don't know
Yes.
what's going on, and whatever.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
to start acting now
Right.
and teach our family and bring our kids up with
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
start reducing these chemicals
Toxins.
and all of
Yes.
the exposure,
Yeah.
and do something. Otherwise, it's shoveling, bad word, shit, against the tide. If you're not
Right.
removing it, the tide's just going to keep filling up, right?
Yeah, yeah. And another thing, Cindy, is I lived in China for 25 years. I think we put too much emphasis on money. That's another thing. People will do anything that's paid by insurance. So you and I are up against this insurance disease maintenance system, right?
Right.
So what I want people to think is the life is extremely short. So if you look at the life of the earth, billions of years, our life is a speckle. 100 years is nothing. It's going to be over soon than you think. And I always think about that, because I said, when you are breathing and living, don't you want to be able to do things, make love, have joy, laugh? And is that important? Or would you like to just kind of like killing time, which is not very much? So that's one. The other one, the Chinese always say, health is number one wealth. When you start having quick, clear mind, sharp, motivated, creative, what makes human being different from a robot is our creativity. Once you're healthier, you're going to be wealthier in many, many ways. People don't understand, not even wealthier, just more financially, stronger. It's just really happens, right? People are sicker. Do you know the number one reason for Americans to claim bankruptcy is medical bills?
Wow.
People
I didn't know that.
really make the connection
Wow.
that their health is number one, their best wealth. It's not just a saying, because people think, oh, yeah, but I don't want to spend $50, on my health. So I think you can definitely give them a budget. Everybody need to have a detox budget, because it is a budget. Our body we can't handle all the toxins anymore. And I can tell you in the next podcast about diet. Some of the diet I just learned, it sounds simple if you're not toxic.
Right,
So,
right.
If it's toxic, it becomes very difficult to just do it by diet. So, so that's something I just want you to know. It's really, you have to be honest with people. They have to have a budget, and then they have to start getting healthier. Because if they get a sickness, for example, cancer, you probably heard lots of cancer patients. I spoke to so many oncologists. They said cancer therapies are different. If you go get a blood pressure pill, it's usually paid, okay? But if you have cancer treatment, they have certain drugs that's paid, but it's not very effective. And then, so certain new drugs are more promising, the insurance doesn't pay. Now, what happened is Medicare recently decided only to pay 80% on chemotherapy, and the patient have to pay 20%, right? Now, people say that's not very much, but sometimes chemotherapy is like $10,000. So 20%
absolutely.
is
Yeah,
$2,000. You
yeah.
see? And a lot of oncologists actually quit their practice. This is another difference people didn't know. Is most, like if I'm an internist, I don't have to buy high blood pressure pills. I personally don't have to buy them.
Right.
But oncologists have to buy the drug from the drug company and then bill the insurance and bill the patient, right? Because now they only get paid 80%. And this particular oncologist quit his private practice because he said without the 20%, he just doesn't have the heart to ask his terminal cancer patient to pay the 20%, which is $2,000 per patient. He will go bankrupt himself. You see?
Yeah.
So he just have to eat it, right? So by the end of the month, he cannot maintain a practice.
Yeah.
So that's why he quit his practice.
Right, right,
See?
right. Yeah,
So,
and that's true, because a lot of practitioners, especially these overstressed, overworked docs, they find their way to drugs or alcohol. There's a high suicide rate.
yes.
Yeah. But you know what? Honest to God, this whole evolution and improvement in just the knowledge of how we need to help our own bodies because we're overburdened, I think is really important. And I really think that you have to start cleaning house, right? And
cleaning house.
Gotta get the duster out, get the mops out. We're gonna use clean products. That's just what we do. Oh, this has been so educational, and I really feel it's gonna help a lot of people. And I'm so thankful to have you here and to actually be my mentor and help teach me a lot of really great things. It's always about
Thank you, Cindy.
it's always about that give back,
Yes.
because if you learn it and you teach it, then somebody will then teach forward. You talk about pay it forward, you're going to teach it forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Cindy. And it's always great to work with nurse practitioners, physician assistant. We are now working with younger ones that just graduated in their 20s and 30s, and they love it.
Yeah.
They will go into the conventional setting for a couple weeks, and they will call Cassie. They will say, "Oh my God, I can't do this." I said, "You can't be burned out already. You're only 20 years old."
Well, you know what? You spend all that time learning one thing. And
Yes.
that one thing you never, when you get exposed to a different type of way to care for people,
Yes.
and you're not, yeah, you don't feel as skilled, it,
Yeah.
it is frightening to those people. But I can only say that the more you do it, the better you get. The first thing to do is know what you know, and then number two is know what you don't know, and tell
Right.
people, I'll find you the answer. I think that is the way you gain trust with your patients.
Yeah, and they are all interested in environmental medicine.
That's
So
great.
that's the bottom line. Is that we want to find what's wrong, what's causing these kids to be so sick, and that's more rewarding because one thing about the testing. So I said, the testing is a pain on the butt. You have to pay this freaking $300 and then pee in a jar and send it in. I said, but what happened is you're going to learn so much about your life and then what you can do, and then to stay healthy for a long time.
Right.
And meanwhile, you're going to share with your dad, your mom, at least say, hey, mom and dad, I'm not crazy. I'm just being poisoned.
Right. Right. And I'm not blaming you. It wasn't your fault.
And then hopefully can help their mom and dad too. See, that's the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to doing another podcast with you in the future.
Okay, me too. Thank
All
you,
right.
Cindy, for the
All right.
time.
You hold on there now, okay? Don't go too far
Yes.
for me. Okay. So for everybody, you have listened to yet another informational podcast on living with Lyme. We're so excited to bring you new items, new education, new topics. For anyone that's interested in more of a functional healthcare plan, please look me up at www.pursuewellness.us. And yes, 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 we're all interested in helping people to maintain their health as well as to get healthy. So till next time, people, be well.